Hello everyone and welcome back to the Quiz Talks Football Podcast, episode number 15 of this show. And today, this is going to be a reflection of all of the midweek results that have happened this week. And we've had a mixed lot of results. We've also had, obviously, during this week, two managers go from their posts at Everton and at Watford. We'll also take a look at the title race and how that's showing up as well, and also have a look at the other teams that are doing towards the bottom of the group. No EFL fixtures this week to record because the EFL trophy was on, but we could maybe go and do a roundup of that as well. Hopefully then we're in for a good episode. So then, I think the main news that has happened this week in the Premier League is news 15 minutes ago. Nigel Pearson has been appointed as Watford boss, and it is Watford's third manager in 4 months, which is incredible really for a club like Watford, even though they change managers pretty much a couple of times a season. But Nigel Pearson, that was quite surprising, as it was a name that I didn't really thought would be linked with the job. I think, Nigel Pearson's had a few, stints in the Championship with Derby County, I think most recently. But, I didn't expect him to get the Watford job. I mean, to be fair, there is a point of Watford hiring him. I mean, any of you who saw Leicester's Great Escape 5 years ago know that this man does know how to get out of a league. He's also pretty good in terms of the lower leagues as well, so maybe it's for the future as well, because if Watford do get relegated, either way, I think that Pearson should not be sacked, because he does know how to get out of the Championship. He's been promoted with Leicester, of course, in 2013-14. He promoted Leicester up to the Premier League. So even if they get relegated, Watford, which I thought they weren't going to get relegated in my opinion, but it does look like they are. Troy Deeney is back from injury, although he wasn't 100% fully fit from Leicester. Danny Welbeck is still recovering. They need a striker. Ismail Assar is not scoring goals for them. He's only scored once this season, and that was at Southampton this weekend. So it's just not going well for them. We'll talk about Southampton in a bit as well. But who do they buy though? That's the thing. They need to buy a striker, definitely. Maybe a defender, because their back line is aging. Obviously January is coming up in about 4 weeks. So now will be a very good time to sort of plan ahead. Who will be a buy? I think that really they're going to have to pick up the phone to Jared Bowen of Hull City, or maybe Alexander Mitrovic. But they have to really look at a Championship striker. I mean, Mitrovic and Bowen, of course, are not proven in the Premier League, but maybe also there's been a lot of clubs that have been circling around Liverpool's under-17 World Cup champion of a couple of years ago, Rhian Brewster. Maybe allow Rhian Brewster to go on loan to Watford, because they need a striker to score goals. They have not been scoring goals this season, and that has been their downfall. They're conceding way too much. So at the back, I don't know, maybe they can find some young talent from Europe that they could buy for a hefty little bit of a fee, because they really need defence, because without defence they have looked a little bit leaky. But I think attack is where they need it more, because Deeney, I think, is in his 30s. Danny Welbeck isn't going to get any younger. He's 29 now, I think. So yeah, he's not really, and obviously Dale Lefeu is not a natural striker. He is a cam or a winger. So I think that's really what Watford have to try and do. But again, do not sack Nigel Pearson. He, of course, does know how to survive in this league. He did it with Leicester, and he made some pretty shrewd signings while he was at Leicester. I think when they were in the Premier League for their first season, if any of you remember Leicester winning 5-3 against Manchester United, they had some pretty good players. Of course, they had Jamie Vardy, who was a little bit unknown still at that time in the Premier League. They had the likes of Esteban Cambiasso, former Champions League winner, of course, with Inter Milan in 2010, and World Cup semi-finalist goal scorer in 2006. But yeah, he does know how to make some shrewd signings. So I think if you give him 30 mil, 40 mil in the transfer window in January, I think Pearson could make some good signings, of course. But the only downfall is he hasn't been in management for, I think it's 2 years now. and he hasn't been managing a Premier League side for 4 years, and he has a little bit of a record in the Premier League. He's like Alan Pardew in a way, because of course, yes, he'll keep teams up. Of course, he kept Leicester up, but I think there was a little bit of controversy with James McArthur while he was at Leicester. There was a little bit of physical altercation between the two when McArthur actually, ran into him. So there was a bit of physical altercation, and of course the manner in which he got sacked, there was a bit of a racist Thailand orgy that he was involved in or something like that. So he has left a little bit of a mark on Leicester, but I still do think he will be well respected when he goes and plays Leicester at Vicarage Road sometime in the season, because of course Leicester did play Watford, and Jamie Vardy has scored in his 7th consecutive game as Leicester kept up the pressure. They're still 8 points behind Liverpool. They won by 2-0. Vardy and Maddison getting on the score sheet. But Watford do need a change. I mean, there were promising signs, couple of chances at the King Power Stadium, but again, a loss is a loss. And now Watford have only scored, how many goals have they only scored, Watford? I think they've scored only once in their past. They've only scored once in their past 3 games, as opposed to obviously their win against Norwich at Carrow Road on match day number 12. So it is looking pretty bleak for Watford, and hopefully Pearson can get them back on track, because that is an established Premier League side in my opinion, Watford. And if they do go down, I think it'll be a little bit like Sunderland going down. I think, a sleeping giant. I mean, Watford isn't really a giant, but they're a big club. They are a Premier League club in my opinion. The quality of their players. If they do go down, I think a lot of their players will be off this season. I think the likes of Ben Foster will be off. Jardine Afea will definitely be off. Abdoulaye Doucouré will be off. Maybe Kabasele will go off. Ismaila Sarr will definitely go off. Who else will probably go off? Maybe Craig Cathcart might go off Watford this season. They'll lose a lot of their squad, Watford, and obviously Isaac Success could go off as well. So a lot of their squad that are underperforming at the moment, but there is still time. There is 6 months of the season left, so hopefully Watford can turn it around. But yeah, Leicester, Brendan Rodgers signed a new contract, I think, until 2025, so another 5 years on his deal, which is very good. Of course, there was suggestions that he may go to Arsenal a couple of days ago, but of course he has decided to stay at Leicester for obvious reasons. The fact that Leicester are 15 points or so higher up in the league than Arsenal, so yeah, it's a good point for Brendan Rodgers to be staying, because he's playing good, attractive football at Leicester, and I think that's what the fans want. They didn't see that under Claude Puel, and they're seeing that under Brendan Rodgers. Of course, he has won titles at Celtic, came pretty close to winning the title with Liverpool, so he can play that attractive football that people like me and you, if you saw his brand of football, particularly at Liverpool, know and love. And I think that's why Leicester are where they are, and I think they can try and compete for the top 4. I know they're saying they'll finish 7th, but there's no reason why not. I mean, if they can keep this up until the end of the season, they will definitely reach a European spot, whether it will be Europa League or whether it will be Champions League. But good win for Leicester. They again finished 2nd, 8 points behind Liverpool, who absolutely went rampant against Everton, 5-2. Sadio Mane scoring and assisting a couple. Divock Origi as well scoring. Liverpool recently announced their squad for the Club World Cup, which is being held in Qatar at the same time, and they have to balance 3 domestic trophies now, Liverpool. The Champions League, I believe, the last match day is next week, midweek next week. I'm not too sure about that. I think it is. So they're going to have to balance the last round of the Champions League, the Merseyside Derby in the FA Cup in January. They're going to have to do the EFL Cup and the Club World Cup, not to mention the Premier League. So it's a lot that Liverpool have on. But this will be a test of Jurgen Klopp's managerial tactics and the depth and the quality of the Liverpool squad, because they've announced quite a few youth players in their Club World Cup squad. The likes of Harvey Elliott that they signed from Fulham, Curtis Jones, a young and up-and-coming talent. I think Neco Williams as well, another talent coming up through Liverpool. So hopefully they can do the business for them, because, it was pretty much just the same scenario as they fielded their squad against Arsenal in the EFL Cup, which is how they went through in that 10-goal thriller. But Liverpool beating Everton by 5-2. Everton have finally sacked their manager, Marco Silva. It's about bloody time, most Everton fans probably thought, and it was me as well. I honestly thought that, where he's led them into the table is just not unacceptable. And we hear every single season for the past decade, Everton surely will be in the top 6. They've got enough to challenge. They're making the right decisions. Everton now are in the relegation zone, and that is exactly not what Everton want. It's literally like 2 seasons ago. Everton, of course, 2 seasons ago, they brought Wayne Rooney back, and everyone was, there was a buzz at the club saying, we're going to be in, we're going to be trying to fight for Europe. And they're not. They definitely are not. The signings that they made, Iwobi, who else have they signed? Moise Kean has not really adapted. They haven't both adapted so far, and they're relying too much on the likes of Sigurdsson, Bernard, Richarlison. I don't really know why Calvert-Lewin is actually starting for Everton. I don't think he's a good enough striker for Everton. Of course, Calvert-Lewin, I believe, was signed from Charlton, but he's a good player, but I don't think he's that good to be starting almost week in, week out for Everton now. They surely should be starting Moise Kean, because, 19 years old from Juventus, you're going to come with a reputation if you're playing one of the biggest clubs in the world, Juventus. But yeah, Marco Silva has been sacked. I think Duncan Ferguson or Darren Ferguson, I'm not too sure. He has taken over the club. So yeah, who will be the next Everton manager? We don't know. There is a few odds about who will be the next manager. Obviously, Duncan Ferguson, who's taking contemporary charge, is in the betting odds for the next manager. David Moyes, former Everton manager for almost a decade, he led Everton to 4th, I think, a decade ago, and he is linked with the manager job. Would I like to see David Moyes back at Everton? Well, he's failed at Sunderland, he's failed at Manchester United, he's failed at Real Sociedad, and has he been at another club? David Moyes? I don't think so, no. The last half decade for David Moyes has not been kind, and I think that, okay, yes, the fans might warm him, it might be the fans' choice, but I don't think it will happen. Vitor Pereira, I have never ever heard of Vitor Pereira. Please tell me who will be the manager. But yeah, also Eddie Howe surprisingly is linked with the Bournemouth job, and he was linked with the West Ham job, which could still be up for offer, as I explain later on. But yeah, he's linked with the Everton job. I don't think there's more likeliness in Eddie Howe joining West Ham than Everton. The odds for Eddie Howe are 10-1, but Eddie Howe would never leave Bournemouth. He just wouldn't. He would not leave Bournemouth. I think the fact that, Bournemouth are now obviously only 2 points, which isn't much, of course, it's only a win, but they've won the same amount as Everton. They've lost 2 less games though, and I think Bournemouth are going to survive comfortably, as are Everton. But Everton just need the right manager, because for them to be relegated is just unheard of, because this was the situation they were in 2 years ago when they had Ronald Koeman in charge. And Ronald Koeman is now one of the best managers in world football, managing the Netherlands national team. He's rebuilt that team. That country's national team has been rebuilt under Ronald Koeman. They should not have sacked Ronald Koeman in the first place to replace him with Marco Silva, because they're in the same predicament year after year after year. Everton underachieving. But Rafa Benitez is also linked with the manager's job. Would he go to Everton? Well, he's been to Newcastle, where he wouldn't spend. Obviously, he's going to get the money if he does go to Everton, but I think Rafa Benitez is a little bit more defensive sort of manager, so he will obviously look to shape up the back line, which will be pretty good. But obviously up front is where it needs to happen, because Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison and Sigurdsson aren't really scoring that too many goals. So yeah, there's a reason why they're on minus 11 goal difference. So yeah, I think defensively it would work out for Rafa Benitez, but I don't think he would go back to Everton. I think he's too good for Everton. He should definitely be going to a top 6 club. Remember, this is the guy who has won a Champions League and a Europa League with Liverpool and Chelsea. So he is one of the top managers in world football. So yeah, I really do think that I think Rafa Benitez at Everton is an insult for me. But yeah, it is what it is, and hopefully it can happen. Who do I want to see as the next Everton manager? I don't know. I mean, Mikel Arteta, the former Arsenal player and Everton player himself, is linked with the job. Obviously, again, the fans will probably like him, but he is Guardiola's protege, and I don't think Everton would be the right job for him. I don't think he's too experienced enough to get the job. But who will do it? But it depends really on whether or not they will actually hire someone with experience. Remember, Quique Sanchez Flores, Pochettino's in the window as well, and obviously now. But yeah, who would it be? I mean, Vitor Pereira, would he be the one? I don't think so. But of course, the fans obviously looking to try getting a good manager that actually knows what he's doing. Leonardo Jardim as well, the Monaco manager, is linked with the Everton job, as is Unai Emery. Quite surprisingly, which I don't think he'll get that manager job, Unai Emery. I think he's too good for Everton. I mean, this is a man who's won record number of Europa Leagues. I think Unai Emery. I think Arsenal maybe was a step too far, but in saying that, you could say, oh, he worked at PSG. I mean, it doesn't really comply, isn't it? PSG is a pudding league where they're in now. So then, speaking of managers, Arsenal are in such a state. They're on their worst winless run since 1977, which is only 1 year after my mum was born. Yeah, that's a long time. So this Arsenal team is so bad. I mean, if it wasn't for Lacazette and Aubameyang, they would be in situations like Everton, near the relegation zone. And they're not too far. They're only 5 points from safety at Arsenal. They've won the same amount of games as Everton. That is madness. They lost again at home to Brighton. And it's getting so bleak now for Arsenal. And obviously, we will obviously see who will be the next Arsenal manager. But, it's sort of like, it's just really embarrassing how that club has slid off a cliff this season. I mean, obviously, Unai Emery came in off the back of a Europa League, and I was thinking, oh, surely this could be the one. But we don't know who will be the next Arsenal manager. But, yeah, I think that maybe there is a slight chance that Brighton could clinch top 10. I think they've done pretty well. But, yeah, it's just not really doing good. But, yeah, Massimiliano Allegri, the former Juventus manager, remains the bookies' favourite to become the new permanent Arsenal manager. But obviously, Freddie Ljungberg has stepped in to lead the Gunners as, obviously, interim boss following the sacking of Unai Emery. And there is a lot of people that have been linked with it. And Patrick Vieira, former Arsenal player, of course, as well, is linked with the job, as is Mikel Arteta, Carlo Ancelotti as well, the Napoli manager, and Nuno Espirito Santo is linked with it. But there has been a name that has really sort of sprung out to my mind, and it's a name that most of you guys maybe expected, but maybe didn't, and that name is Diego Simeone, the current Atletico Madrid coach. Now, for him to go to Arsenal is, I would say, the same level. He's obviously very good defensively in terms of, buying and selling players. It's a reason why Atletico Madrid are actually doing quite well, despite them not having Godin or Hernandez, most of their backline. So, yeah, I think that that could be a sign of good things to come. And obviously, Simeone has a good record in Europe. He's taken them to, 2 Champions League finals, 2 Europa League finals, is it? I think he's definitely won one Europa League. Obviously, I think Arsenal will probably maybe look for a manager with success, and that's where Allegri comes in. I mean, Allegri's led Juventus to two Champions League finals. Let me correct that. He's led them to only 1 Champions League final, but a lot of trophies in Italy. But Other names include Eddie Howe, which is pretty good, in fact. Pretty good. Eddie Howe, Rafa Benitez, which could be likely. Dennis Bergkamp, who's actually the Ajax assistant manager, Julian Nagelsmann, the Leipzig manager, and Erik ten Hag, the Ajax manager. So, who should I think replace Emery as manager? I don't know. I feel like Vieira, the fans would love. He has got a bit of experience because he's managing now. But, would he be the perfect fit? We don't really know what his transfer business is like, how he manages players, because it's the French league, and obviously we don't really pay a lot of attention to the French league. But, it all depends on how Arsenal handle this situation. I think they need someone to definitely bring a defender, because replacing, David Luiz as the answer to your backline it's like replacing an old, broken down Aston Martin with a Fiat 500 that's new. I mean, it's not really going to get you anywhere in terms of, desire for that. But that analogy did not make any sense. But you know where I'm going with this. They should not have brought in David Luiz. I think, of course, yes, he's a good player, David Luiz. But, again, William Saliba, 18 years old, bring him back. Don't send him out on loan. Bring him back. I think that they made a big mistake in letting him go out on loan. He could have maybe changed that Arsenal backline. They need defenders. Ozil definitely looks like he doesn't want to work for the team. Bring in an attacking midfielder. Try and get Dani Ceballos on a permanent transfer, because he's okay, I suppose. Give Nicolas Pepe more game time. You do not cost 72. You do not cost 8 million less than Cristiano Ronaldo in his prime when Real Madrid bought him in 2009 and not away on the bench. This is a guy who wanted to go to Barcelona or Bayern Munich, but no, he's spending his years on the Arsenal, or months rather, on the Arsenal bench, which is not what he wants to do. But good win for Brighton, of course. They're hopefully going to try and set aspirations in the top 10, as I said. Aston Villa, they lost away at Chelsea. Chelsea 2-1. Chelsea back on form, of course, after that little slip-up at the end of last week. Southampton distancing themselves now out of the relegation zone following a 2-1 win at Norwich. And now that's 2 wins in a row, 3 games unbeaten, 7 points out of a possible 9. Pretty good for Southampton fans as well. For Norwich, I mean, they're doomed, really. They just are. I mean, Timo Pukki has scored, but not as many as probably he wanted to at the start of this season, considering how he started this season. Crystal Palace beat Bournemouth 1-0, and Crystal Palace are getting quite close to the top 5, top 6. So look out for them. They may be dark horses. Manchester City staying 3 points behind Leicester after smashing Burnley 4-1, and Newcastle United distances themselves further from the relegation zone by beating Sheffield United 2-0. 2 games left for me to look on: Wolves and Manchester United. We're going to look at Wolves first, because obviously Nuno Espirito Santo linked with the Arsenal job. He's done well as Wolves coach. Wolves are in 5th place, 2 points ahead of Manchester United. Is he the right manager for them? Potentially. It depends on, how he treats the actual squad. Will he give Nicolas Pepe more playing time, like I said, or will he not? Because he's £72 million. He really should be giving him more playing time. But also West Ham 2-0 defeats. They're in a little bit of trouble now, West Ham, because of course with that win everyone was thinking, surely Pellegrini will stay in a job, but it's only 1 win, and now it's a little bit worrying for West Ham fans, because now they're only 2 points in front of Everton. So could there still be a change at the London Stadium? I mean, I've always said Pellegrini is a pretty decent manager, and I've always said, don't sack Pellegrini, but who would come in? That's the thing. Who would actually do it if West Ham would go? Obviously, the main contenders are, of course, Chris Wilder and Eddie Howe, Rafa Benitez is a shock name that is on 6-5 West Ham. Chris Hughton, the former Brighton coach, David Moyes as well, Sean Dyche, Martin O'Neill as well, the favourites to replace Manuel Pellegrini. If Rafa Benitez goes, that could potentially be West Ham's best ever managerial appointment, because Benitez is a top manager. He could get West Ham potentially in a couple of years to that European spot that they've been wanting for years. I mean, West Ham is one of the biggest clubs in this country, and like, they have the players. Sebastian Haller for £45 million. I know he's only scored 4 goals, but he's probably thinking to himself, I'm 15th in the goddamn league. I should be inside the top 5. That's where I was at Eintracht Frankfurt. So, yeah, it's interesting times for West Ham. But for Wolves, they have to do everything they can to keep Espirito Santo, because I cannot think of a replacement that would actually do the job for them. Manchester United beat Spurs 2-1. Rashford has now got 9 goals in his last 9 appearances, a double at Old Trafford, condoning Jose Mourinho, former Manchester United manager, to his first ever defeat as Spurs boss. And Spurs, of course, have sort of reincarnated themselves, only 1 point behind Manchester United, the same amount of wins as them. And I think Mourinho got the defence a little bit wrong, because they didn't really defend well in that game. Aurier, Sissoko didn't really do much apart from give away the penalty. Harry Kane looked a little bit anonymous in that game. It was a great goal from Dele Alli, though, probably contender for goal of the month. He brought it down brilliantly from midair and shot past David De Gea. But Marcus Rashford, obviously, could he be the next Wayne Rooney? The next... I don't know. Could he be the next Wayne Rooney? Could he stay at United and become one of the best strikers in Europe? We actually don't know. I actually don't know. I think he's a good striker, good kid, but obviously he's got a lot of time to see if we can, judge whether he'll be one of the best strikers in the world. But for Spurs, of course, it's been a good start for them under Jose Mourinho. I think 2 wins out of 3 is kind of what I expected. I mean, I think that obviously the squad have said, despite him losing, it gives them a winning mentality, Mourinho. And I do think that, they've got Burnley this weekend. So it's a welcome time to face Burnley, I think, after that thumping at Manchester City. And 2 home defeats in a row for Burnley. And away, they're not really good away from home as well. So it's a good time to face Burnley. But Mourinho is still adjusting to what he's going to have to work with. So I think it's why 2 wins out of 3 probably seems a bit more realistic for a manager of his talent. I mean, he is one of the 3 best managers in world football for me. So yeah, I think for him to get 3 points so far is pretty good going, I think. So hopefully he can build on that, and yeah, we'll see him probably at Burnley winning the game. But yeah, Liverpool now, if we look at the table, have 43 points. They're unbeaten this season, of course. Leicester have 35, Manchester City have 32, Chelsea have 29. The bottom 3, Everton, Norwich and Watford. 2 of those managers have been sacked in the last 24 hours. So we will see who happens, who obviously will be the next manager in Everton. Games currently going on in the European leagues. Atletico Madrid are currently facing Villarreal, and that is 0-0 there. And Inter Milan and Roma, 2 Manchester United bought teams, really, because of course Inter Milan have Romelu Lukaku leading the line, and Roma have Chris Smalling and Henrik Mkhitaryan in their team as well. Just to round off this episode, in the EFL Trophy second round, the main talking points really is that Manchester City's under-21s managed to beat Shrewsbury on penalties by 6-5. MK Dons as well, not going well in League One. They managed to beat Coventry City by 2-0. And also Tranmere Rovers managing to beat Manchester United's under-21s as well. So that's it then for this edition of the Quiz Talks Football Podcast. Hopefully you guys did enjoy another podcast coming out on Monday. This is going to absolutely kill me. I'm going to make an announcement in the next couple of weeks. So until then, I will see you guys next time.